Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Field Pass Pod. It's AFC and NFC Championship week. We had a great weekend of football last week. We had at least three good games. The last three, the Ravens game was a little bit dominant, but we had a good weekend of football, and I don't see why we wouldn't have a good one this week. It's sad to see that we are in the later ends of our season, but we gotta enjoy it while it's here. So, Andy, how was your week? I know you didn't.
Yeah, it sucked um to lose like that in a close game that you potentially can go tie at least if a field goal's made, but you can't all blame it on that one play. There was things that they could have executed better on both sides of the ball. Joe Barry has been fired. We've moved on. So it's a new leaf and honestly, I was towards the end of the season, I was in the boat. Like I was like, if they gave him another half year to see, what he's got, it wouldn't be terrible just because the way that they played down the stretch. But I think the overall badness of that defense and the scheme, thankfully Preston Smith is no longer playing slot corner, so that's good.
Yeah,
Um,
he definitely made some questionable decisions this season, but
He,
he started to redeem
yeah,
himself a little bit.
he started to redeem himself, but I don't think it was enough. If they had made it, if they had beat the 49ers, I think that it would have been enough, to be honest. Um, but yeah, I had said, like, when they played the Cowboys, I was like, it's a win-win because if they win, then we go to the divisional, and if they lose, we fire Joe Barry. So I'm not really, concerned about this one. But yeah, great season, especially from where it started to where it ended, for the Pack. And honestly, the Texans also, that turnaround is absolutely crazy. They were able to do D'Amico Ryans, and his crew over there in Houston. They are building something special.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
yeah. Andy mentioned Joel Barry. We're gonna save coaching changes for next week. We'll break those down when Zach is back. But let's
Yeah.
move on to the games with Mahomes and Kansas City going into Buffalo and getting it done and surviving. Now, when you're when you were looking at this game beforehand, the person that was getting like sold out by his teammates more was Mahomes. His receivers weren't
Yeah.
catching passes, just everything was going wrong. But it turned around last week. Josh Allen was the one making plays, and he threw one of the best throws I've ever seen, 60 yards down the field, and it went through Stephon Diggs' hands. We had the missed Tyler Bass field goal. We had multiple drops by this Bills offense, and you got to give all the credit in the world to Josh Allen because he played his heart out. He didn't turn the ball over. He did everything he could to try to get Pat over this hump. It's just his team
Yeah.
wasn't there with him. They were selling the bag a little bit, but no need. You can't take credit away from what this Chiefs team has been able to do year in year out. They show up in these big games and they get the job done. Kelsey showed up, caught two big touchdowns, and yeah, I was impressed, but I also thought Buffalo let this one go.
Yeah, this is one Buffalo you wish you could get back. Simply because they they kind of had a turnaround season this year, with starting off and, not looking great, ending up to be able to win the division. But yeah, Stephon Diggs just like didn't seem very reliable this season. At least like not like he was in the past. I know Gabe Davis was also out this game, which that really hurts them. But the Bills are one of those teams that's like they're not young, to the point like the Texans, for example, where it's like, oh, this is a fun team. Like they got something here. It's like it's the same thing every year. Like they're pretty good, but they lose to the Chiefs.
Yeah, and they're good at
Um,
keeping their players too, I feel
they're
like.
good at keeping their players. I mean, they have a great culture, and again, they're a great team. And eventually, they will get over this Kansas City hump, but like, it's gonna have to be, I don't know, because
It's gonna have to be sooner rather than
Kelsey
later.
play, yeah, Kelsey played great, which is great to see. Obviously, when a guy like him is full tilt going, um, that's really fun. But yeah, I mean, hand it to Kansas City. They got the job done. They're a different breed in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think many people were counting them out and Mahomes, and they showed
Mm-mm.
up on the road. So you got to give them credit when credit is due. But
Yeah,
moving on.
people
Oh, sorry, go
people
ahead.
were making it seem like this was some big deal that Mahomes was playing a road game in the playoffs, and I was like, dude, I don't think he has magical powers only at
Arrowhead.
Arrowhead Stadium. Like he he has proven in the regular season he's great on the road and in hostile environments also. So that was just kind of funny to me that everybody was like, "Oh, well, like what did they think he was gonna turn into like Easton Stick out there or something?" I don't know.
I think people were just excited to see him go into Buffalo and see what,
Yeah,
because Buffalo is kind of like Arrowhead, where it's very hard to win there.
right.
And but I mean, he got it done. Something that I mean, because Josh Allen is undefeated against Mahomes in the regular season. I'm pretty sure, but he hasn't got a win in the postseason. Like
Yeah.
that's it's funny how that always plays out. But moving on to the America's team, the Detroit Lions. They beat out Tampa Bay and Baker Mayfield
Yeah.
in a close game, but I mean
It wasn't a great game
the
though.
Lions were ahead the whole time, but it
Yeah.
was close. I mean, I don't know. Dan Campbell, I mean, he deserves a, a, a pay raise or something, because I mean, what he's done to this Detroit Lions team has been phenomenal. I mean, we've seen this for all 19 years of me on this earth. They have been the worst team in the NFL, 18 of them. This is the
Yeah.
one year that they that they are good, and I mean, they're in the NFC Championship, and they may not stop here, because I mean, they got they can hang with anyone. Their defense, their secondary is a little bit questionable, which I'll get to later, but they have the offensive firepower to hang with any team. And even though their defense gets beats at times, they still get stops. So I'm really impressed with this Lions team, but you also got to give credit to Tampa Bay. Everyone was counting them out before this season. Baker Mayfield showed up in a big way. This defense showed up, and they made it to the divisional, and they had a shot to win it. And I mean, you just gotta tip your hat to Todd Bowles down there in Tampa, because I mean he was everyone was saying, oh, he doesn't have Tom Brady anymore, he can't coach, and then he brings his team to the divisional with a Baker Mayfield, who honestly didn't have a good year last year, but he has built himself back up and maybe looking like he's going to stay down there in Tampa.
Yeah, Baker, when I was on with Zach, we were both pretty high on the Bucks. And like they definitely do have things to improve. And mainly like a lot of the times watching that game, Baker was putting the ball on the money, and at first Mike Evans wasn't hanging on to much. He got going though, uh later in the game. But like Chris Godwin kind of seems like he's kind of disappeared, unfortunately. Um, but the Buccaneers have a pretty bright future, I think, if they keep Baker there. I think I saw a great tweet or something on Instagram, and it said Baker Mayfield is who we thought Johnny Manziel would be. And I think it's pretty accurate just from like his style to him being one of the best Heisman winners we've seen in, recent memory. Um, and now he's actually having good success in the NFL. And yeah, I just the funniest part to me about that game was like the Lions won at home, obviously, and that one their corner Gardner Johnson was like still talking mess about Baker because he got a pick off of a tip ball that Baker put. It wasn't a great pass, but it was a catchable pass, and
And
it was
Mike
like
Evans
you
tipped it in
gotta.
the air.
Yeah, Mike Evans tipped it in the air. You got a tip drill interception, and he was acting like he usered it off of him, and it was just like, whatever, man.
It would have been
But
different if the linebacker, I don't know his name, at the end of the game that got the interception. It would have been different if he was talking because he actually did
yeah,
Lurk Baker. But that was Mike Evans hit it 10 yards up in the air and CJ Gardner Johnson ran underneath it.
you're right. And it was just like, I mean, the Lions almost need to like get all their players together and just disable their social media for the next couple weeks because they're the most likable team in football right now, and people who say things like that make you unlikable, especially with a likable guy like Baker. If he had said something like about a quarterback people don't really like, then it'd be different. But Baker's just kind of one of those guys that's like he's easy to
Well,
like. It's just
yeah,
the way he plays and stuff.
CJ Gardner Johnson has always run his mouth. I mean, this isn't like a
Yeah.
first time thing. He did this at Philly and everything, so but
Which I mean, he has the right to do. He's an NFL player, so
yeah.
he got to the highest level of football. But it just, you know, calling out Baker like that stinks when he had such a spectacular season and put himself really back on the map.
Yeah, he should be up there for comeback player of the year. He
Oh
should.
yeah, I think so.
Because I
From
mean,
going bouncing around the league last year, getting traded to Carolina, and then signing with the Rams and having that brief little stint to like he was battling Kyle Trask for the starting spot is what they brought him in to have some competition. And he won it, and everybody was like, okay, they'll win a couple games. And they made it all the way to the divisional. So
yeah.
it's kind of like a revival of Baker
Yeah, because I
Mayfield's
mean,
football
seeing
career.
seeing how the Panthers are right now, I don't think anyone's holding his Panthers sin against Baker. Because I mean,
No,
no quarterback has done well in that system. And then I
that
mean,
system is a
Rams, he
mess.
was only there for like 4 weeks, and he was playing with G League players. So
Yeah, and he won a game. He came
I
back and
think he
won that
went. I
game.
think he won two.
That was
So
crazy. Which to me, for the Rams, is kind of funny, because like you look at it, and just even pre this great year from Baker, if you told me that John Wofford was a better backup quarterback than Baker Mayfield, I'd laugh in your face because I'd just be like, "What are you saying right now?" And so the Rams have had some pretty interesting backups, um, but yeah, I'm glad for Baker and I'm glad for the Bucks to make it that far.
yeah, but the next one we've already you already talked about a little bit. 49ers survive at home. And you broke down what needed to happen. You said you needed to get Aaron Jones involved. That happened. That was their first 100-yard rusher, and I don't know, it was like a long time. You need to get
Oh,
Purdy.
against them, yeah.
Yeah, you need to get Purdy off rhythm, which he pretty much was off the game because he wasn't very accurate. And I mean, you guys, I don't know if you've turned them over or not, but
I
you
don't think so.
you guys, the Packers played as good as the game as they could. I mean, it came down to two plays. The missed field goal when you're up four, that would have made it to seven, and then when the 49ers scored, it would have tied the game. And then the Jordan Love interception, because I
Yeah, that
know
was pretty bad.
he was trying to make a play, but there's still a decent amount of
There
time
was a
left.
lot of time.
There's no
Yeah.
reason to throw it into double coverage across body 30 yards down the field. And
Mhm.
those were two plays in the fourth quarter in clutch time that didn't go the Packers' way, and that's why you guys lost. I think those were the two plays that game came down to.
Yeah. I
Because
mean,
I
ultimately, it is obviously hats off to San Francisco. They're a great football team. Um, They wouldn't be in that number one seed position playing to go to the Super Bowl if they weren't. Um, but let's be real and look at it as it is. And I mean, personally, this might just be a little biased. I think the Packers were a lot better than that seventh seed that they got labeled as, um, because of their record and their miscues earlier in the season. Um, but with that being said, a one seed beat a seven seed by 3 points. If I'm Detroit, I'm like, let's frickin' go. Let's go kick them in the tail right
Yeah,
now.
and I think Detroit was in a rare instance where they were rooting for the Packers because they wanted to
Hmm.
have that NFC Championship at home. But
Yeah, and I was rooting for Detroit, um, because I watched the Packers beat them. Well, I was actually rooting for Baker, but I was like, hey, if you know, uh, I guess the Packers had already lost, but just wishful thinking. I was like, man, we could be playing in Florida for the NFC Championship game. That'd be nice, huh?
yeah,
That'd be an NFC Championship game that everybody would be like, how on earth did this happen?
yeah, Tampa Bay versus Green Bay in the NFC Championship. That would have been wild.
That'd be everybody would be like,
No one
what?
had that at the beginning of the season.
No
I
one,
know
yeah,
that.
nobody had that.
But I mean, yeah, you got to give credit to the Packers. Even Joel Berry, I know he didn't have the greatest season, but when it came down, that final stretch, when you guys needed stops, he got them. He was
Yeah.
he came in clutch at the end of the year, and I would even say this game he had a pretty good defensive game. I mean, he shut down the 49ers for most of this game. They had a couple possession. I mean, I don't even remember what the final score was, but
It
it
was
wa-
I believe 21 to 17
yeah, so
or
not
21-24 because if we hit that field goal, it would have tied it,
yeah,
I
so
think.
not high scoring at all. And I feel holding the 49ers to 24 points is a win for a
Yeah, I mean,
defense,
it's
for a defense.
especially with that explosive offense. Like they were contained. Um, you know, is what it is. I mean, our offense struggled. I kind of pin it more on our offense. If they were able to capitalize on some opportunities, um, literally score one more touchdown, which is not easy to do by any means. We'd be having a way different conversation right now.
Yeah, but moving on to the Ravens game, and as they dominated the Houston Texans. The
Yeah, start
Texans
to finish.
they went out against the Browns defense and put up 45 on them. Now, I think me and you thought the Ravens would win, but I don't think we were either predicting that the offense wouldn't score a touchdown. They scored 10 points, but they had a field goal and their touchdown was a 70-yard punt return.
Yeah.
So the Ravens and Mike McDonald completely shut down CJ Stroud and this high rolling Texans offense. And what can I say? They are looking like the team to beat. They are looking like the Super Bowl favorite right now. And as long as Lamar can stay healthy in these next two games, which hasn't been a given these past couple of years, they could be looking at a Super Bowl win. 'Cause, I mean, they are looking like unstoppable right now.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think that that was a pretty solid game. Um, in terms of the Ravens getting what they wanted to achieve done, especially on defense. It was a great game. Uh, the Ravens are one of those teams that's fun because there's so many different ways that they can beat you. Whether that's the run game, the pass game, they just hold you out on defense, and I think that's what makes them a championship team is you have to take away and limit all these different factors to their scheme. And I mean, I don't think many people gave the Texans a chance against Baltimore. Um, so obviously I guess we kind of saw why there
Yeah.
on the weekend.
I mean, the Texans had a great year, but I think they just met their match. And they'll continue to get better because they are a really young team. But right now, it's it's the hardball zone football. They do. So
Yeah,
and
they had put a graphic up and they put like the dad's like he won some like San Jose Conference title championship and they were
he won
like,
a
"Oh, they're all national championship."
yeah, he
And
won like a
we were like,
D2
"What?"
natty.
Yeah, I don't know about that one there, Jack.
Hey, they own football, bro. And now we got Jim back in the NFL, but
For the Chargers,
yeah,
which
yeah.
will burn up and fizzle out because the Chargers are a poverty franchise. But anyways,
Yeah, they got talent, but moving on to what we really want to talk about these AFC and FC championships. And the first game, Chiefs Ravens. And I mean, both of these games are real good, but I think this one is the better one out of the two. We got Lamar Jackson
oh
versus
yeah.
Mahomes. We got Spagnola versus McDonald. I mean, this I keep going back and forth, but I know there's two things. Tony Romo brought up a great point last week, and he said other than the Bills game, because that was an outlier, but in the Lions, 49ers, and Ravens game, the quarterback that had one turnover or more lost the game. And I think that's pivotal in both of these games. And the other than last week in Buffalo, the Chiefs have struggled to put the ball in the end zone. There's been multiple games where they've kicked like 4 or 5 field goals and still won by convincing amount, but you can't do that against this Ravens team. When you get down in the red zone, you got to put get 6 on the board. And I don't see the Chiefs doing that. They'll be able to hang around, they'll be able to move the ball, but I see them kicking a couple field goals and that being the difference factor. And I have Lamar and the Ravens going to the Super Bowl because I mean I think this will start with the Ravens defense, and then finally the offense will become too much for this Kansas City defense, and Baltimore will win by I'd say about a touchdown or two.
Yeah, I mean, Lamar Jackson's been talking about it ever since he came in the league. He won the MVP and he was like, I don't care, I want to win a Super Bowl. He has the opportunity to go play for a Super Bowl. He is going to be dialed in. We've all seen how great of a football player this guy is, and I think that he is gonna show that. The biggest question to me is will the both offenses be able to um m like maintain consistency and contain and maintain good scoring drives. I think the Ravens will, just because there's, like I said, there's so many ways they can beat you. Um, and I think you have to independently game plan for Lamar Jackson in multiple different ways, which we don't see much as a quarterback. Um, and I believe Mark Andrews is playing in this game also, so they'll get a boost from him.
It's good to
Have
see
him
him
back.
back.
Yeah. And so I got I got the Ravens by about 10 points here. I just as great as that Chiefs, well, as great as Patrick Mahomes and Kelsey are, I mean, that's kind of like where it starts and ends for the Chiefs. Pacheco's great, I guess too, but um that Ravens defense and specifically that linebacker core is so good that I just, you know, I don't think the Chiefs are going to be able to establish what they want to offensively because I think that the Ravens defense is a significant step above Buffalo's defense, and that game came down to a field goal. So I've got I've got the Ravens here also.
Yeah, and I think this game is split down 50-50 really, because I mean it is a very even matchup, but I think we're just seeing like how the Ravens have played, and they've really been unstoppable. But the thing they can't do is what I said is they can't turn the ball over. They can't give Mahomes
Yeah.
extra possessions. If they keep this clean, I think they should be able to win. But we'll see. Now, the Lions and 49ers game. This one is a little more interesting for me because again, it's going to come down to turnovers because Purdy last week he was sailing or undersailing balls that I mean, if defenders are in the right places, those can be picked off. And then we all know what happens when Goff gets pressured. He tends to panic. Even though he's been kind of in the playoffs, he's been kind of balling, even though he's had some pressure in his face. The thing that is most concerning to me is number one on Detroit's defense, Cam Sutton. I can't express how many times my dad was throwing stuff every time he got beat and yelling and
Yeah.
everything because it was over and over and over again. Like, I mean, he was like 5 yards behind the receiver. It wasn't even really close. And this Lions secondary is going to be the difference maker. Can they contain this 49ers offense? Because the Lions are going to be able to put up points. We all know that.
Right.
It's can they contain this 49ers offense to maybe a 24 or a 28, like the Packers
Yeah.
did. And if they can, they have a great shot. They have a great shot. But the secondary needs to show up. CJ Gardner Johnson needs to back up his trash talk, and they need to get this job done. And I think they will.
Yeah.
I'm picking the Lions to upset San Fran 49ers in Santa Clara to win the NFC Championship. It's not a popular pick, but I really like Dan Campbell. I've always believed in them, so I can't stop now. Even though I'm not a Lions fan, but I do really like Dan Campbell as a coach. So I'm going to pick the Lions.
Yeah, I agree with the points that you made there. The key factor really in this one is scoring at a high rate and limiting their offense. Limiting their offense in particular. I think the the pass rush, if they're able to get home, the Lions really don't seem to blitz that much. But they need to turn up the heat. They need to get home, disrupt Brock Purdy, get him rattled. And that's how they'll win this game. We saw that they're there when Baltimore did that to him, and they, even though those picks weren't necessarily his fault, a couple of them, um, they got in his head, they got him off his course, and that's how you beat this guy. He's still pretty young, so I don't know that he's built up um that resilience yet, which is understandable. But if the Lions can get pressure on him, get him out of rhythm and contain big plays, their secondary, like you said, is very, very questionable. So that makes me kind of concerned. But at the end of the day, that offense is pretty solid. They got to be able to put up points against a great 49ers defense. Um, so I'll go Lions here also, mainly just because I want them to win. I don't want San Francisco to win ever. Um, so I'll go Detroit here. I think the rest of the country is rooting for Detroit, and
Just
Baltimore because
cause.
if we have to watch the Chiefs and 49ers in the Super Bowl, it's going to be like, okay,
It's going to
cool.
be an
But
entertaining game, but like we just feel like we've seen this before.
we don't want to watch that nonsense. We saw it 2 years ago. It's this, or a couple years ago. And when the Chiefs won, you can't really tell me Brock Purdy is leaps and bounds better than Jimmy Garoppolo was that season.
Yeah, but I think these two games are shaping up to be good. I really see them both going down to the wire. And Sunday's going to be a good day of football. Um, yeah, next week we'll just break down these games. Then we'll talk about coaching changes and maybe the Pro Bowl. But the Pro Bowl isn't the same. Andy, you got any last words? And
Nope.
all right, we hope you guys enjoy your football. Hope if your team's still in it, that your team wins, and we'll see you all next week.
See ya.
Peace.